Hi guys. Want to go over a couple of things with you guys as far as what I was looking at from last week. We still have a few people that are not making the most of their time. Remember, we're planning on about 20 minutes per day that you would be spending making art, or the time it takes you to do your assignment. So we do have an assignment every week, and we have a project every week. The project should take you 20 minutes per class day, normal class day. Or excuse me, on a normal week, we'll have 4 class periods that are dedicated to art, one that's dedicated to the assignment. The art day is 20 minutes apiece, 4 by 20 is 80, so we're looking at 80 minutes. This is a short week, so we're looking at 60 minutes worth of artwork. The lesson I have for you today, if you catch on, it won't take you an hour. If you're running a little slow, you'll be pretty close to that hour. I'm going to give you 2 choices. One, you're going to be able to do a paper mache. The other is just using strips of paper and tape like I've got here. But before we get to that, with the assignments that you guys are doing, please make sure you're using complete sentences. Make sure you're using academic language. That means proper spelling, proper grammar, proper punctuation. You get 2 points per questions where you have to write a sentence. The first point is for getting the answer right. The second point is for using the academic language. You are graded on that, so please make sure you're using it. This week I didn't hit anybody on that, but I will going forward. Also, make sure you're not copy and pasting. Make sure you're not using somebody else's words. Use your own words. Don't plagiarize. Had a couple this time that copy and pasted. Had a couple that maybe worked together and had the same answers exactly. Let's avoid that. Also, make sure you're answering the question. When it asks you what's the artist's name, or excuse me, what's the name of the artwork, and describe it. Explain the name of the artwork, or excuse me, give the name of the artwork and explain what it looks like. Tell me as though I'd never seen it. Describe it like you're telling a child. Okay? And make sure you're using a 3D piece, 3D artist. Go off of the sculpture set that's in there, not the painters, not the photographers. I'm saving those for the 2D classes. And don't use one you've already used. Okay, that's it on that. With this going forward, what we're going to do is we are going to make a glove, or kind of not a glove so much, but a statue of a hand. And we're going to do that using your own hand as a reference point. So the way that we do that, we're going to start out with our fat sheets of paper. We're going to wrap those around our arm in a ring. And so I'll take that and I will just wrap that around my arm. And you can also use somebody if you want to. Since I'm using this on my arm, I am going to actually come through and pin it to my chest. So I'll pin it over here to my chest. I'll come through. You can make it the whole arm if you want. You can start at the wrist, whatever works for you. I think right about here is a good place to start. And so I'm going to do a few rings on that. I'm going to pause the video and then I'll come back. But let me get these first couple in before I pause it so you kind of see what I'm doing here. So pin that to the chest. I'm going to come down. I'm going to bind that with my thumb. And I'm going to make sure that this tape hits both this one and this one. So the tape is hitting both here and here. Then I'm going to come around, I'm going to spin that to the other side, and I'm going to put a little piece of tape on the other side. And I'm going to do that all the way up. So I'm going to pause it, and I'll come back when I've got probably up to about the knuckles. Okay, so I decided to come back at the wrist instead of the knuckles because I came up with a pretty easy trick. Made this a lot easier. I taped 3 of them at a time here. Just boom, boom, boom in a layer on the table, and then I put it up. And then right here on the wrist, I folded it over and taped it. So now all I have to do is just come down and tape this over. I want to get it as close to that edge as possible. And tape that over. And then I'll come back and do the same thing with this one. And by going at that angle where this one comes down like that, that gives me the tightness that I would have in like a regular glove, which is going to make it a better fit It'll also make it easier to cut off when it's time to cut off. And then I've got this last one here. And that's the downside to doing it this way, is I do end up with extra on one side. So I think I'm just going to put that there and layer that like that. Okay, so now I'm at the wrist. I'll do a couple more here and then I will come back. And the way that those extra ones are going to go, this is the way I did this. Just so you guys kind of see where I'm at here. I'm layering them over the top of the previous one. I want to get them as close to straight as possible. But it doesn't have to be perfectly straight. And then I'll put that in a straight line, just to make it a little bit stronger, do a little bit over the top of it. Okay. And okay, put that tape right there over the top, and I'm going to go through and do what I had just done. You can see how I have these three will all kind of floppy bird along there, and now I'm ready to go, and I will be right back. Okay, now I'm up to the pinky knuckle right here, and so what I want to do now is I'm going to do the same thing this time with two, and notice how I don't have them straight this time. It's smaller on this side than it is on that side. I have them taped together, and I'm going to put that right up there. And the reason I have these different, and I'm also not putting it straight, the reason I'm doing that is because the thumb and the pinky, they're a different size. So I'll come around with these two like I had been. And I'm going to actually end up with a little bit of extra tape. I'll just fold that extra tape under. And I'm wrapping on the inside of my thumb. Athletes, if you've sprained your wrist, it's a similar, there goes my pencil. It's a similar wrap to a sprained wrist or a dislocated thumb. So, having had done both, I know how that feels. Okay, now I want to take another one of these fat ones. And this will be the last of the fat ones that I'm going to put on from the top side. I'll bring this around, and then I'm just going to marry that up there. But this time I'm going to put the tape on first, and I'm going to pull it tight to kind of, remember how I crinkled that before? I want to make this as tight as I can get it. And so there. Now the next step, I'm going to put strips across the fingers that'll go from the top to the bottom. It will be like this. And so I'm going to assume it's taped on the bottom, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that on all 5 fingers, and once I get that done, I'll show you how that's going to look. I'll do the middle finger first because, well, you're in junior high, that's probably your favorite finger. So we will come up here, and put a little bit on the bottom. Let's see, I didn't give myself enough room, so I'm going to move that just a bit. Now I have enough room. Put that tape there. Alright. There. I've got the middle finger done first. Use that power appropriately. Okay, so now the next thing I need to do for this finger is I'm going to take these half strips. They're the same as these fat ones here, but they're cut in half, or you can use these smaller ones and cut them in half. It doesn't matter. But they're cut in half, and I'm going to make rings going this way. And I'll do all of the fingers, then I'll do the rings, and I'll come back and show you once I have all the fingers what to do with the rings. Okay, I've got 3 fingers now, and then on the, I notice this is a little easier. If I come through and put the tape on first on both ends, then I can come through, tape that down, stretch it around the finger, and tape that down there. So the next thing I want to do is I'll do the thumb as well. I can use one of these short ones for the thumb, thankfully. And so same thing, I'm going to come through, I'm going to get my tape. This probably looks a little weird, me trying to use this hand right now. So tape on both sides, and I'm going to go around this way with it. So my thumb is there. Didn't give myself quite enough room, so I'm going to move it up and come across, and that is a perfect fit. So it doesn't look very much like a glove yet, but once we put the rings around, it will. So you can kind of see there what it's looking like on both sides. And the next thing I want to do before I do the rings, I'm going to cut it off. But before I cut it off, I'm going to need to make sure that it stays in one piece when I cut it off. So I'm going to pick a line, and this is where it helps if you have a marker of some sort, a Sharpie, or really just about any kind of marker. I'm going to come through and draw a line, and I want to go in between the fingers there. But the purpose of this line, and I can do it on the top or I can do it on the bottom. I think it's easier on the top because I can see it better. The purpose of this line is to tape over it. Tape's not cooperating. And I'm taping over the line so that when I cut it, everything stays together. Because if I cut it not on the tape, what will end up happening is everything will fall apart and I'll have to retape it. So you'll notice I did a zigzag line. I don't have to cut it in a zigzag line. That's just to make it easier for me when I go to put it back together. Be careful not to cut yourself when you're doing this. And I just made a bad cut and lost one of my joints because it wasn't taped down underneath, this one right here. So I'll have to go through and retape that. So I'm just going to go through and cut this. I'll be right back once I have it cut. Okay, so we're cut and it's off. No blood, no foul. Alright, so this piece that broke off, I'm just going to come back and I'm going to retape it. And then what I want to do is close the wound. So I'll take a small strip here, I'm going to put this on, and I'm going to start with that zigzag spot. And I want to line it up where the cut was. Just like that. And you can zigzag it all the way down if you need to. It's whatever works for you. And again, I'm going to put the strip on one side and then kind of try to match it up. You won't be able to match it up exactly. You can if you're using plaster, and you can kind of do it with paper mache, but with just tape like this, it's really hard to do. So just come as close as you can. Alright, so now we're taped back up. Now it's time for the rings. For the rings, I'm going to take one of the half sheets, and I'm going to put tape on one end. I'm going to bring it around, and I'm just going to tape it like that. I'm going to do a whole bunch of them. Okay, so I made 5 of those, and then I took one here for the thumb, and this is going to go along the inside of this thumb, excuse me, the outside of the thumb. The thumb will go inside of it. It will go down like that and give me some depth to that thumb. And I'm going to do that for each finger. Okay, and the last part, I have added all of the rings on here. So I've got, it actually sits like this. This is the top of the hand, just like that. I've got the rings going all the way to the top, taped across the top. It stands up. There's the bottom. Perfect world. That's kind of what we're going to go for on this. Give it a try. Let me see how far you get with it.